Eschatology, strictly speaking, is the study of last things. Now that could involve the events pertaining to Jesus' second coming, the things that happen just before that, the things that happen after that. Will there be a millennium? You've also got the final states, the new creation, hell, that type of thing. But there's also an element of personal, individual eschatology. What happens to the individual person upon death? Where do they go? Is there an intermediate state that they experience in heaven, or do they go to Hades? And then how does that relate to the hope of the resurrection of the dead and the new creation? Eschatology covers those sorts of areas. But I would say that eschatology is not just the events that are followed at the very end. There is a sense in which all of theology now is an eschatology in the process of being realized. Because when Jesus preached and taught and ministered and executed his messianic career, he was fulfilling certain Old Testament promises, about there being a suffering servant, a Messiah, a new Davidic shepherd, and he brought the new covenant. And between Jesus and the Spirit, they announced and they worked to the point that the kingdom had already arrived, in a sense, not in its fullness, but it was already there embryonically by virtue of the presence of the King and his powerful deeds done in the measure of the Spirit. And then with Jesus' resurrection, he becomes the first fruits of the general resurrection. Resurrection is meant to happen at the end of history, and yet God does it for one man in the middle of history. And that means we live between the ages. And the Spirit is also given by Jesus. It's given to the church as a kind of a deposit, guaranteeing what is still yet to come. And because of that, we can say that we live in what is the now and the not yet. We already have the now. We've had Jesus' first coming. We've seen his redemptive work. There is his resurrection and the giving of the Spirit. That's the now element, but we still also are waiting for our blessed hope. We're waiting for the day where God is all in all, where every tear is wiped away, where there will be the great resurrection and the new creation. And that now not yet perspective affects everything we do, everything we think about in theology, even our ministry. Even what we think about care for our environment is shaped by that now and the not yet of eschatology. So eschatology is a very important area, but it's not just about the last page of the story. It's not just the last chapter of a textbook. It's about how everything we do, our prayers, our ministry, our theology of church, of what we think of justification, how we present the gospel, all of that is shaped by this now and the not yet.